Hi, welcome. Welcome to the Introduction to AIM webinar today. I'm glad you could join me. I'm going to be talking about AIM for the next 45 minutes or so, just telling you about how it started and all of the different component parts. So let's get started. I'm Wendy Maxwell. I am a teacher, currently teaching, training teachers, and I developed AIM in my classroom many years ago. I'm the author of various different books and other resources to support teachers who are interested in implementing the methodology. Oh, I see something in the chat here. Just a minute. I'm just going to let um, um, and re-enter and click connect to audio. Hopefully, that will help Viorica get back in. Okay, let's see. All right. Okay, well, hopefully Viorica will get back in that way. So you can contact me at this email. I'm also on Twitter, and basically, I think the best way to contact me is through that email. And so, as I mentioned, over the next 45 minutes or so, I am going to tell you about the methodology called AIM. As I mentioned, developed this methodology in my classroom with my students over the course of about 10 years in Toronto. The accelerative integrated methodology, which is AIM, is accelerative because within a very short time, students are able to rapidly not only understand, but begin to speak and read and write in the language. It is integrated because, as my former experience as an immersion teacher taught me, teaching language through another subject area is very, very beneficial. So I use an arts and literacy-based approach to teach a language. And AIM is a methodology because it is indeed a system. It is not just one strategy or one technique. In fact, there are numerous techniques and strategies, each one on its own being effective, but together as a methodology or a system, it is extremely powerful. So I just, out of interest, if you don't mind, and I'm glad you got in, Viorica, that's great, or got the audio activated. If you wouldn't mind writing in the chat just a little bit about yourself, where you teach, what you teach, perhaps what brought you here, how you found out about AIM. Yeah, so if you teach core French or Spanish or French immersion, and where and what grades, that would be great. I'd really appreciate that. I can really gear the presentation to the group here today, so that's very helpful. Okay, thanks, Viorica. All right, and you teach primary. Great. All right. So AIM was developed in a primary / elementary class, upper school French in Los Angeles, and at the Archer School for Girls. Oh, AIM was developed in a girls' school, Bishop Strachan School, the oldest girls' private school in Canada. I did use it primarily at the younger levels, but some teachers many teachers, especially in the United States, are using AIM from grade 7 to 12. And certainly in the Netherlands, it's used widely for that age group in the certainly high school, and some recent results out of the Netherlands have shown that the AIM students are the best in the country. So that's great to know. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. So let's have a look at AIM in some different classes all over the world in different languages.
Everyone will do the song. Grand-mère. Parce que c'est la grand-mère de Chaperon Rouge et la mère par Chaperon Rouge. Alors c'est ta grand-mère. Sur la forme des fantastiques, la classe est ton Yo, toma.
Una persona importante o importante, importante, importante. Entonces, yo no hablo con tú, okay.
Contigo.
Oh, sí.
我要找一个故事。小鸡住在农场里，一天小鸡出上学，一个小国家从小鸡的头上。怎么了？哎呀，天塌了，天塌了！怎么了？你知道？你知道？天塌了吗？
All right. Well, that just gives you a very, very little aperçu of the of AIM in different classes. To answer your question, Travis, or you just let me know that you start learning French in grade 7. Okay, that's great. Well, we definitely have a lot of teachers in the US, and in fact, in the Netherlands, they start learning it around the same time, and they take AIM right through to grade 12. So aiming for proficiency, we talk a lot about the can-do statements, whether it's the ACTFL guidelines or the Ontario guidelines, and how important it is that we get students moving as quickly as possible through the different language levels of proficiency as stated in the CEFR, which is very much nowadays forming the basis of many curriculum guidelines all over the world. Hi, Allison. Welcome. So glad you could join us. AIM has always been, well, it was developed for the purposes of helping my students gain proficiency, which they weren't developing even after 5 to 7 years of language instruction, 30 minutes every single day. They just couldn't speak, read, or write in the language at all when I started to teach, as I mentioned, at Bishop Strawn School in Toronto. After being an immersion teacher, I moved to Bishop Strawn, and I was just shocked that my students could not, I just had no proficiency. So I decided to work on improving those students' proficiency levels as I committed to staying at the school, and I really was looking forward to teaching core French or FSL 30 minutes a day. So that's what I worked on over the next 10 years. So the accelerative integrated methodology is a comprehensible input-based approach. I wanted to make sure my students were understanding what I was saying, because they weren't when I started to teach. And because I really believe that the faster they could understand, the better their acquisition would be. So it is a comprehensible input-based approach. It also has a content and language integrated learning focus, or CLIL. So basically, as I mentioned before, as a former immersion teacher, I saw the value in teaching language through another subject area. So the area that we use in AIM is arts and literacy. So it's a very, very much a literacy-based approach. We integrated with the arts, music, drama, dance, and also, of course, theater. And as I mentioned before, our primary goal is to develop authentic proficiency. It always has been the goal of AIM, and it continues to be the goal of AIM. So what AIM does best, unlike perhaps other programs or methodologies, it very rapidly gets students up and running in the language, both orally and in writing, so that in a fraction of time what we're typically seeing, and in fact, sometimes it just never happens that students develop proficiency even after many years, AIM rapidly helps students develop both oral and written proficiency. And it can be adapted really to any program that you're trying to teach, because it is a methodology. It's just a series of techniques and strategies that we use to develop proficiency. Now, this is done in a specific way through the use of story, theater, drama, music, choreography, and other techniques such as the certain questioning technique that we have, as well as well, there are others that I'll talk about fairly throughout this webinar. It isn't tied to a specific curriculum, although I have linked AIM to many curricula around the world. It is multidisciplinary, as I mentioned. There is a lot of brain-based research that has been done that supports what we're doing with AIM. And I can share the research that we have on AIM, both specifically on AIM in the world and also research that supports AIM that has been done for other purposes. And much of this research is on our website if you would like to see it. And I can share those links with you if you're interested. So Allison, if you'd like to write where you teach and what grades you teach, that would be just fantastic. What language you teach. Then we'll sort of get to know each other a little bit. So AIM is used in many different schools all over the world, primarily in Canada, which is where it developed, in Ontario, it's in BC, Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan. Most provinces use AIM to a greater or lesser degree. It's used widely in the United States. It's also used in the Netherlands, as I mentioned, and widely in Australia as well. As I mentioned, it started in an independent school in Canada, and now many different schools, public and private, use it all over the world. Now, in the Netherlands, there was a recent study, well, a long-term study that was done a few years ago on students in AIM classes, because a lot of students are learning French through AIM over there, and parents were wondering, is this a good methodology? So University of Groningen up in the north decided to do a long-term study, and they discovered that AIM students outperformed students in all the other most popular language programs in that country in all language skills. And in fact, this research in 2023 was voted the best research paper of the year in the JESLA journal, which is lovely because a lot of people, I suppose, found out about AIM that way. The Dutch teachers just this year let us know that their students are rated the best in the country, in the 100th percentile, and that's for learning French from grade 6 to 12. Thank you, Travis. And we have students in various states in the United States winning the National French Contest. AIM is used in these states so far. So I'm going to go over the key components of the methodology. First of all, as you probably noticed, or you may know if you know a bit about AIM, one of the most interesting, I would say, things about AIM when you walk into an AIM classroom is that the teacher is gesturing and the students are speaking. Sometimes the students are gesturing too, but most of the time it's just the teacher gesturing and the students are speaking. Thank you, Allison. So you teach in Saanich near Victoria, K-3 French year before. Oh, that's nice. Oh, so you're familiar with Orff music. Okay, and what school in Toronto? I taught at Dewson Public School in an inner city school there, and I went to Oriel Park. Oh, John Fisher. Okay, I personally went to Oriel Park School in Toronto, so not too far. And I went to North Toronto as well, which isn't too far from John Fisher for high school. I went to NTCI. Okay, well, back to this. So the gesture approach is a technique that allows us to pass directly to meaning, very much the comprehensible input component, one of the most important ones. So the students, without having to translate in most cases, the teacher is giving the students a gesture, and the students learn what that means, and they learn the sound of it. So basically, if I was teaching Mandarin and I said ni hao and you don't speak Mandarin, it's an arbitrary sound that you might think, oh, does she mean kneel, or something to do with knee, my knee? Or if I said ni hao, you try to figure out relating to your own language. But as soon as I go ni hao, oh, okay, ni hao, now I understand what that sound means. And so any students new to a language, for them, it's the same thing. So we want this arbitrary sound that humans have created relating to meaning become very obviously comprehensible as soon as possible. So the gestures like va and vient and ici and regarde and ouvre and ferme and livre and crayon, whatever it might be, or le ciel, help students rapidly understand what that sound means. So not only that, the other aspect of the comprehensible input, as you saw from the video, is that the teacher gestures. And when that happens, then now the students are doing the speaking in the class. So in an AIM classroom, the students are speaking almost 100% of the class time. Very different from studies that say, oh, you know, typically in a 30-minute class, you know, a student will speak 2 minutes and 30 seconds approximately. Well, that is not enough to become proficient. With AIM, they're speaking almost all the time, albeit guided by the students, by the teacher's gestures for a certain part of the time, and the other part of the time during partner group activities, they're interacting spontaneously and applying the practice that they had in the whole class activities. So now the gestures not only help students understand meaning, so let's see, lis and écrit and regarde and va and so on, but they also help students come to understand grammar. So we have the infinitive form, je marche and je veux marcher, with the every infinitive has an R somewhere, so we add the R. We have the past tense forms over the shoulder, il a marché, with the accent aigu over the shoulder. So these gestures, and even the gender aspect of the French language, we have elle est content, mais sorry, il est content, mais elle est contente. So you add that gender gesture for the L that signals the additional sound. So there are a lot of aspects to the gesture approach that help students not just understand the words and meanings, but also get a deep understanding of grammar. So now what are the words that we teach through gesture? Well, we have a very important, and this is very important, we have a selected vocabulary that we call pared down language. It's a vocabulary that I developed with my students along with the gestures at Bishop Strawn in Toronto. And we decided what gestures would be ideal to help rapidly help a student understand a word or a sound. And then I documented in my class my students' use of vocabulary, and I studied also other high frequency studies and came up with what we call the pared down language, which is basically high frequency vocabulary, so that students are, in the limited time we have in core French or even in immersion, we want students exposed to really high frequency words, so we're not wasting that very precious limited time we have on learning, say, many different fruits and vegetables, or many different words for animals or insects or whatever it might be. Yes, we will teach food. Yes, we will teach animals, but we will teach ones that we know we're going to be using a lot. The pared down language is extremely verb centered. The way we teach verbs is very unique. We use the regularized stem. So basically, we're not worrying about conjugation to begin with. We teach the third person singular form, which orally applies to the first and second and third person singular form, and usually the third person plural as well. So for example, we have peut, can, peut. Je peux, tu peux, il peut, elle peut, on peut for we, can, tout le monde peut, which is we as well, and la classe peut, which could be vous or nous as well. So we just use the peut, or the veut, or the va, or the doit, or the je sais, tu sais, il sait, elle sait, on sait, tout le monde sait, or la classe sait, knows, instead of nous and vous. We put those to the side at first, just to make it very simple for the students to acquire the language and to speak correctly using verbs initially for a little while. We also use cognates whenever possible, which of course most teachers do anyway. So the way we integrate this vocabulary in the gesture approach and contextualize it is through stories, plays, music, theater, and creative drama. Offering something to the students that they come to know intimately well is a very, very beneficial way of helping students then transition easily into their ability to manipulate the language independently. So I often give the example of if I was in a Mandarin class, and I don't speak Mandarin really at all, but if I were starting to learn Mandarin and the teacher asked me, what do you like to do on the weekend? I might understand the question a bit, but I probably would have a bit of a hard time thinking of how to come up with the words to tell the teacher what I like to do if I had a limited vocabulary. When we ask a question like that of our French students, they too, I've found, have difficulty. But if you ask the question, and the kids are working on Les Trois Petits Cochons play, and I ask the question, Qu'est-ce que le premier petit cochon aime faire dans la maison de paille? The kids can answer right away. Le premier petit cochon aime jouer de la guitare dans la maison de paille. And it comes so easily for them. So it's a wonderful ability. This allows us, having this story allows us to scaffold the ability to respond to questions based on a story that's very well known, and then extend out into questions about themselves. And so we're doing this constantly with AIM. So these language manipulation activities help students in a very scaffolded manner start to manipulate the language in simple ways and then increasingly more challenging ways until at the end of the kit, they're writing their own stories. So these are both oral and written language manipulation activities. And our main goal is to help students transfer to spontaneous communication, both oral and written. And we don't want this to happen just after many months or many years. We want it to happen in the first day or two. So just some pictures here of teacher working with the gesture approach. This, as I mentioned, the teacher is usually the one gesturing and the students are speaking. Sometimes we have kinesthetic reviews where the kids embed the meaning of the gesture, and this is very helpful too for acquisition, helping them to embed the meaning by gesturing sort of string of words that we give the students, and they have to gesture them. And it's fun and it's active and it's interactive, but it's also highly beneficial because if we can help students embed the meaning of a word in different parts of the brain, so they're embedding it kinesthetically, auditorily, and visually sometimes simultaneously, they're storing this information in different parts of the brain, and it really does stick. And then it is the recall is very, very much faster and easier. So let's have a look at a teacher. First of all, we'll have a look at a video of a teacher not using AIM, and we'll see what that looks like.
Aujourd'hui, je suis très excitée parce que la semaine prochaine, je vais visiter mon ami qui habite à Winnipeg. C'est vrai, je suis née à Winnipeg et toute ma famille habite à Winnipeg. J'ai 2 sœurs et j'ai ma maman et mon papa qui habitent là. Alors, ma maman est tellement contente que je visite Winnipeg la semaine prochaine.
So that's nice. The teacher is speaking only in French. It looks like the students are listening. We don't know if they understand. There's not much language production there except the teacher talking, which is very common in language classes because the teacher has all linguistic power. So who else is going to speak? Well, this is how we'd shift that linguistic power structure in an AIM classroom and flip it on its head. And the children are now doing the speaking.
Pardon?
Winnipeg.
Excellent.
Alors, je vais
Continuez
maintenant. Est-ce que tout le monde sait ou ne sait pas que je suis né à Winnipeg? Je sais pas. C'est vrai, je suis né là-bas et j'ai aussi des amis que je peux visiter là-bas aussi.
So as we can see, the teacher is gesturing. The students have obviously over the course of days or weeks learn this different vocabulary, and we build more and more and more vocabulary every day. We add to the knowledge of the students' gestures and always go back and review and move forward, go back. AIM is very much a hierarchical approach where we continue to review extensively the words that we've introduced so they come to know them intimately well. So the teacher gestures for the students to communicate on her behalf, and it's a wonderful opportunity for the weak students, the strong students, and the shy students to have equal opportunity for participation and practice. And of course, we do a lot of comprehension checks to make sure students are understanding as well. I don't think we'll show the Spanish and English though. All right. So now, as I mentioned, the pared down language is a very important component of this approach to ensure student success. We use high frequency words. We use the regularized stem of the verb. You teach a lot of verbs. We teach a lot of question words also, a lot of linking words like si and me and well, avec and pour and so on. And we teach a lot of cognates. So the literacy and arts-based component is not only just the story itself, but we also help students to practice a little bit of dramatization. You certainly don't need to be a drama teacher. I've never taken a course of drama in my life, nor have I acted. But students really take to this well. They tend to love it. They love interacting in role. They gain confidence interacting when they're interacting in role in a new language. The choreography and the dance component with lots of raps and songs get students up and moving, and that's all part of our brain-based component along with the drama to help students move to the words and get the blood flowing and different levels of practice in the classroom. So they're not just sitting all the time, they're standing, they're moving their hands sometimes, they're dancing, moving their bodies. All of this helps keep the brain alert and accelerate acquisition. So when I went to the University of Toronto and OISE for my master's degree, and even in my undergraduate, David Booth was someone who really influenced a lot of what I ended up doing in my classroom with my students. And I love this quote from him. He's very strong. He was a very strong proponent of drama in the classroom, and he worked only in an English first language environment, but I feel strongly that his ideas are even more applicable in a second language environment. So he said, children new to a language find in a story context for understanding. It's not word lists that command their attention, but the lives of characters that fill the tales they read or listen to in the literary stories they meet. And how painful it must be for those children alien to a language to sit day after day without feeling connected to what is happening in the classroom. And yet, through storying, how quickly they enter the activity, making sense of what is happening, building their own versions, listening, telling, retelling, talking about, reflecting upon, responding. And really, this sums up a lot of what we do in an AIM classroom. We work a lot with story. They act out the stories. They retell the stories. They even extend the stories. They publish books about their story extensions through the various literacy techniques and strategies that we have in AIM. Let's have a look at part of a French play here.
Le guépard arrive à la maison du lion. Il parle avec lui. Monsieur Lion, qu'est-ce qu'on fait? Il ne pleut pas depuis longtemps. Tout le monde a très soif. C'est un gros problème. Est-ce que tu peux nous aider?
D'accord, Guépard. Tu dois aller à l'arbre Ungali, un arbre magique qui est loin d'ici dans la forêt. Tu dois dire le nom de l'arbre et après ça, l'arbre peut aider les animaux. Dis à l'arbre que tout le monde a soif parce qu'il n'y a pas d'eau. N'oublie pas, c'est l'arbre Ungali.
Oh, merci, Monsieur Lion. Merci. Je cours à l'arbre maintenant. Au revoir.
So the various plays that we have are very much age appropriate. So we have entry-level stories for students age 5 to 7, another one entry-level story for ages 8 to 9, another entry-level story for ages 9 to 12, another entry-level story for 12 to 13, and another entry-level story for age 14 and up. So all of these different stories are not only age appropriate in terms of content with respect to the story, but also in length and in level of repetition. And then the kit itself that we have that centers around the story with all the activities, the teacher's guide and the student activities, are also geared specifically to each age group. For example, the kindergarten activities are very different from the grade 7, which are also very different from the grade 10 activities. All right, let's have a look at some of those songs and raps that I made.
La classe commence et tout le monde est prêt. On doit parler seulement en français. Mais si quelqu'un parle en anglais, cette personne n'a pas de carte et ça c'est vrai. Ça c'est dommage, mais on espère aussi que tout le monde décide d'aider ses amis. En français, on parle tellement bien. Notre rap est terminé. Oui, c'est la
Okay, so that's one of our entry raps. We have entry raps for all ages, some for the little ones, and this one is for high school. Basically, we start off every class with a commitment to the use of target language only in a fun way or just in a basic way, just by committing to it and saying that. Sometimes kids will walk into a classroom saying that rap. We certainly don't need to show the video every day. In fact, we certainly wouldn't recommend it. But we also write raps together as a class to just engage the students and have them take ownership of that expectation and the commitment to use target language only. So that is the purpose of that one. We have other raps that segue from one activity to another, from one time of the class to another, and also some songs that are based on the stories. Every story has its own song and choreography as well. So here is one.
Some city girl, I don't know. Can't see the same moon. We like the Louis.
Okay, so that's just one of the many dances. Again, for the older ones, we don't have as many that we have choreographed. We encourage the students to create their own. I remember when I was teaching grade 7 over here in Vancouver, I had some grade 7s who loved to rap so much that they went out at recess and came back in and decided to show their choreography to the class. So for older students, you want them to take ownership, but for the younger ones, like for the Louis La Grenouille kit, we provide a choreography. All right, these are just some students interacting in the language in French. Oh, just one moment. That's not what I wanted to show there. Sorry about that. So the language manipulation activities that I mentioned are there to ensure that we keep stepping up the students in their ability to manipulate the language independently. And at the very end of every kit, we write at least one story as a whole class, and then the students write one with a partner, as we can see in the picture on the right. That's what they're doing there. That's a story retelling. And then from step 2 kits and up, so after the first 50 hours of instruction, the students then write in every kit a story retelling and an extension. And they can vary anywhere between 5 to 10 or 12 pages in length. Our main goal, as I mentioned earlier, is to ensure that students transfer their knowledge and their learning to spontaneous speech and the creative writing process, and it's certainly in the target language only. There are a variety of there's a variety of individuals, both university professors and other educators, who have come to either just come to AIM knowing about it because their teachers have been using AIM, if they're language consultants, or sometimes they used AIM themselves, as Gary Carkin did for English second language learners, adults at his university. And here's some more testimony.
If I had to choose, one thing that distinguishes AIM classrooms from more typical core French classrooms, it's the level of emotional investment that kids have in the process and the fun that they're having. And again, that's fuel that drives the learning process.
So they're very keen and they can apply. I guess the most remarkable point is that they can apply everything or a lot of what they've learned in a context, in everyday life context.
What we didn't anticipate would happen was that students in grade 4 with a sibling that it was in grade 7 were going home at night and actually speaking French in sentences at the dinner table. And the feedback was very impressive from the parents that all of a sudden their kids were having conversations that they couldn't follow in French at the dinner table.
So it's wonderful when we see that students are taking French out of the classroom, whether the parents speak in French or not. It doesn't matter. I mean, in this case, the children were speaking to each other and the parents didn't understand what they were saying. But it's lovely to see that the students take ownership, and then the language becomes part of who they are. This is what I was going to show you before. These are some students. We walked into a classroom and said, you've been using AIM now for a year, just talk, and we'll just take some video. So here we go.
Engali est très fantastique.
Oui, oui. Toi, toute seule maintenant. Et tout le monde avec Melissa. Oui, j'ai oublié son nom. J'aime qui est peu de mes chanter. Est-ce que tu peux chanter ça maintenant? Très bien. Oh, oui? Est-ce que tu peux chanter maintenant? Non, parce que tu es très, très... oh, oui.
Il y a 5 personnes dans ma famille, mais je pense que mon frère est un animal. Oui. Moi aussi.
Okay, so, well, at least the students are complaining about their siblings in the target language, in this case. And in the first segment, the young guy was trying to get the person opposite him to sing, which he didn't want to do while on camera. And he wanted to use the word, it's because you are embarrassé, but embarrassé wasn't part of the early pared down language, the vocabulary that they had learned. And the children in the class know that it's a target language only environment when they're in French class. They don't use any English. So it was really nice to see that the girl next to him gave him the word that they do know as an alternate using circumlocution and said peur. Really shows a little bit about the cooperative learning component of AIM. So I've talked a lot about the development of oral language skills, but AIM equally, or I would say equally at least, develops also written language proficiency. But because oral language skills develop so well with AIM, the transfer to written language skills is really immediate, especially when we're talking about an English to French language learning situation. I think I'll just move forward here and show you some of the creative writing. So this is one of my students' pieces when I was in Toronto. This is a step 1 kit. This is the student's first year of French, 30 minutes a day at the end of the year, around the 80th hour of instruction. And she wrote this story. It's a story retelling based on the story that we've been working on. And a story retelling teaches the students the skill of circumlocution. They are not to repeat any sentence directly from the original story that we've been working on, but they must retell the story in their own words. So it forces them to use the words that they know to say what they want to say, but I don't want them repeating the vocabulary from the story, but they are retelling the story, the same story. They don't change the story. So this is a story written by this grade 1 student here. And of course, if the grade 1 student can't write it all in English, they're not going to be writing in French. But this student had started to develop some language in English, English written language skills. So she was able to write in French. The same strategies are used no matter what the age. So this is grade 11 in Spanish. In this case, we see the student has written something much more elaborate, much more detailed, better spelling, better punctuation, better grammar, although still some mistakes because it's still the student's first year of Spanish in this case. So it's much longer. Even in Japanese, where they have to learn a different script, they don't write as much within the first 80 hours of instruction, but they certainly have learned enough to start to write a little bit. So that's her story retelling. Back down to grade 7 now. So this is a grade 7's first year of French. This is also, Travis, a girls' school in Vancouver, a school I worked at after working in Toronto. I was brought out to bring AIM to this school called York House in Vancouver. And this is a student, first year of French, writing her story retelling as well. Again, much more detailed than the grade 1 student, much longer sentences, much more accurate spelling, grammar, and punctuation. Okay. And then the next step kit, the step 2 kit. So we have 6 step levels through elementary, 4 step levels through primary, and 4 step levels through high school. Once the students reach their second step kit, then we do not only a retelling, but an extension. So, qu'est-ce qui se passe après? What happens after the end of the story that has an unresolved ending, where in this case, the wolf, fell into the soup and the pigs are happy, but he's still hungry. And qu'est-ce qui se passe après? So my students in grade 1 wrote this one. Après que le loup sort de Les Trois Petits Cochons, il va à la maison et dort et se réveille et marche à la blase et court et marche. Monsieur Loup est très fou et content. Et le loup frappe à la porte de la fille amie. Il dit à son ami, est-ce que tu veux danser avec moi? Oui, je veux, je aime toi. L'ami dit, est-ce que tu veux aller à ma maison? Le loup dit, oui, oui, je veux. Le cochon est ici, dit le loup. J'ai peur, dit la fille amie, elle court à sa maison. Oui, je veux aller à ma maison. Est-ce que tu veux aller à ma maison? Oui, je veux aller à ta maison, dit le loup. Je veux faire une fête. And anyway, they're little ones, they want to have la fête. We also always celebrate their fête. And so she wants to have a party the wolf wants to have a party with the other wolf. So they go to Loblaws, which is a grocery store, and then they eat and they say, ça c'est délicieux. Very interesting spelling there. But again, these are just core French, FSL students, 30 minutes a day of French. And one of the students had me in kindergarten and the other had French just starting in grade 1. This is a grade 8 student from Missouri who they're now in their second kit with AIM, and we read other stories. We have AIM readers. You can read any other stories you wish. And the students follow the same process of story retelling, where they retell the story in their own words. That's one of our activities in the future kits. In this case, the teacher didn't want to do a qu'est-ce qui se passe après story extension. From the ending, this teacher asked the students to do a story extension from before. So the play started, or the story began. So what happened leading up to the story for this kit? And this student in grade 8 wrote about 1,000 words explaining how, or writing a story about how the story began, the story for the kit began, what led up to what happened in the kit story. Okay, we also work a lot about grammar, but only when it's appropriate. So this is an example of students working on grammar.
Corrige les erreurs. Le numéro. Tout le monde lit avec madame. 1, 2, 3. Est-ce que tu peux chanter avec il? Qui vois une faute dans la phrase numéro 1. Oui.
Chante doit être chanté parce que après peu, c'est l'infinitif.
D'accord. Tout le monde, on va répéter la règle. Et c'est la règle numéro 1. Tout le monde d'accord. Après, comment, pour ou de, toi, un peu et aussi peu. C'est mon va, où je vais, c'est l'infinitif qu'on doit utiliser. Fantastique.
So basically, at a certain point, once students are beginning to speak and are beginning to make errors, I've patternized the language down and simplified it into a series of raps that help students understand how the language works. So we approach grammar from a 3-step inductive approach. We talk about this in our trainings as we go through. So this leads us right into how do we implement AIM. If you're interested in implementing AIM, we have a full suite of resources, teacher's guides. Here we have the program guide that comes with the Step 1 kit, the teacher's guide that's fully explained with 85 lesson plans and a script and other information that will help guide you as you work through the methodology after having received a training. We have partner group activities books, which contain all of the activities that the students work on. They're photocopyable for the entire life of your kit. You don't need to buy any student workbooks, although we do have them. We have big books, both hard copy and projectable. We have posters and image cards, again, hard copy and projectable. Assessment activities books as well, for assessment for and of learning and student self-assessment as well. We have a series of DELF-like tests that test for overall proficiency, and that comes in the new edition kits. We have our AIM portal with a lot of different resources that are there in digital format, all the videos, all the audio with projectable posters, and an e-reader of the story as well. As I mentioned, we have correlations with ministry guidelines. So if you're interested in those, I can point you toward those as well. And we have a training series, and we highly recommend training just so that you feel very supported as you begin to use AIM. Really stepping into your classroom on the first day you use it after having a level 1 training really gives you the tools to get started right away. You will know the gestures. You will know all the activities in your Step 1 kit. You will know how to gesture, the different things you need to communicate to your students with gestures. You will know how to conduct a kinesthetic review and an oral review and do a total question and a partial question, and how to introduce the story and how to use the story and as a basis for developing proficiency. So first of all, you would just start with the level 1 workshop. You can move right through to certification. The next trainings, well, we just finished our in-person Summer Institute in Toronto. That was a lot of fun meeting the teachers there last week. And this coming week, we have our virtual Summer Institute coming up. Next Monday and Tuesday will be our level 1 training. So that would be most appropriate for any of you. I think Viorica, you might be coming. I'm not sure. Travis, are you coming? I thought I saw a couple of names there. Oh, Viorica, that's great. Yes, I thought so. And then after that, we have our in-person Fall Institute on the BC PD Day, October 25th, and then again the Saturday right after. And in British Columbia, are any of you from British Columbia? Where are we here? No, Toronto. Yeah, that's right. So, yeah. Okay, so maybe Travis from Los Angeles, you can come up to BC. In any case, anyone could come from anywhere to our virtual Summer Institute. I know it is kind of last minute, but it is next Monday and Tuesday if you are interested. So, yeah, so that's it for today. Do you have any questions at all? I would love to answer any questions you might have about our workshop or anything to do with the methodology. Yeah, it's beautiful BC. Oh boy, I'm just looking out the window here at a lovely scene. It is definitely beautiful this time of year and still very beautiful in October typically. So yeah, would be great to see you. It's going to take place at a large, beautiful school called West Point Grey Academy, right downtown Vancouver, right near the ocean, actually. In Yeah, so if you're interested, yeah, if you have any questions, you can just reach out to Kathy or to me. And if there aren't any questions, hopefully I'll see you. Oh, Viorica, are the learning kits included in the training sessions? The kits aren't included, but you do get a discount on kits when you attend the sessions. So yeah, that's how it goes. Yeah, so if there aren't any other questions, I guess that's it. Oh, do the kits come? Yes, Viorica, the kits come with absolutely everything you need to implement the methodology. Absolutely everything. All the songs, the raps, the dances, the videos of the gestures, some more training videos, all the posters, all the image cards, a teacher's guide with every single minute fully explained with teacher script and 85 lesson plan, giving you a lesson plan for the entire year. Everything you need is there. Okay, Allison, in Vancouver. Yes, so getting started in the meantime, if you want to get access to a kit, you can purchase a kit anytime, and you can bundle your kits with the training to get a discount, as I mentioned. So you can, once you get your kit, you're going to get all of the digital materials. So you can start learning the gestures, you can learn all the songs, you can learn the story, and then you can start reading through the lessons and familiarize yourself with them. And then with the 2-day, you can just really come to put all that information together into something that's probably more comprehensible than just trying to read through and piecemeal and put it together yourself. All of that will become clear in the training, but certainly if you get your kit or kits right up front, then you'll have access to all of the content and will be able to start learning things and reviewing lessons and seeing just what AIM is all about. What do we specifically learn in the first 2 sessions? We will spend the very first day, and this applies to the BC workshop as well. So for our 2-day workshops, we focus on the first day on the basics of the methodology to help students acquire oral language. So we work on what are the gestures? I go through a series of a few of the first lessons that we'll implement with the students. So you'll get a real feel for what it's like to be a student, while at the same time learning what it is to teach and learning the gestures yourselves. We will go through all of the basic techniques, the gesture reviews, kinesthetic reviews, oral reviews. We'll go over a few games. We'll learn about how to question with the gestures. And at the very end of the first day, we'll learn a story and how to gesture the story and how to question based on the story. And then in the second day, we focus a lot on the transition between oral to written while maintaining oral, also developing written language skills. I'll take you through every single one of the basic language manipulation activities, how to model them in writing for the students so they're successful when they work on it with a partner. We do some songs and raps and dances. We work on strategies for target language only as well. It is a very, very full 2 days. So you will learn a lot. And those sessions are recorded, the virtual ones, so you may review them over the course of 3 months. You'll have access. So if you say, oh, what was that we did? Well, I just want to look at total and partial questions again. I'll go to that section again and review that, that part. So you have that access to those for that amount of time to review. That's the benefit of the virtual one. The in-person one is fantastic because there's nothing like in-person. So, yeah, so that is that. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay. Oh, there's one more session. Oh, the third one. Yes, on the third day. Oh, well, not the third day, but we have a level 2 one for 2 days. We have a level 2 workshop for the Wednesday and Thursday. And then on Friday, we have our specialty sessions. And our specialty sessions are open to anyone. They are offered by AIM facilitators, not just me, but I'm doing a couple. I'm doing a gesture practice, and I'm doing story extension and book publishing. And then Pauline Gallia is doing classroom management with AIM, some fantastic strategies for classroom management, as well as working with AIM readers, hands-on practice with AIM readers. Finally, Edie Salmons is doing a session on AIM and grammar. So that's for this specialty session. Every time we offer out, whether in person or online, specialty sessions day, we vary those specialty sessions. So sometimes we have games, sometimes we have story retelling, or many other different sessions that we offer, and we rotate through those sessions from one specialty session day to another. Okay, any other questions at all? Well, I do look forward to seeing you, Viorica, and Allison. Would love to see you at a workshop, perhaps whenever you can make it. It'd be great to see you. All right. So hopefully see you again. Have a wonderful summer now that it's beginning and actually here. Have a great relaxing time, and hopefully see you in the future. Thank you. Bye-bye.